Our next witness is Bob Tabb. He is Deputy Commissioner of the West Virginia State Department of Agriculture. Bob grew up on a dairy farm and has been involved in production agriculture his whole life. He is testifying today on behalf of his boss, the elected commissioner for the West Virginia Department of Agriculture, Gus Douglas. Mr. Tabb, you may now deliver your testimony, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Tipton, Ranking Member Kritz, and other members of the subcommittee for inviting us to participate in one of the most important situations to affect agriculture for the future of this country. And it's about agriculture and young people. I am Bob Tabb, and I'm Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture for the longest-serving commissioner in the country. Gus Douglas is on his 44th year as the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of West Virginia. And in West Virginia, the Commissioner of Agriculture is a constitutional officer. So he's elected by the people and to represent the people, and that's why I'm here today, because we're representing the people of West Virginia, along with NASDA, which is an organization we belong to of all 50 states and 4 territories. I grew up on a dairy farm in Jefferson County, West Virginia, which is about 60 miles west of here. And having been from a dairy background, the one thing I'll share with the members today, this year, dairy farmers get to do one thing they don't normally get to do. It's a leap year, so they get to milk the cows 2 extra times this year. And the point of that is agriculture is commitment. It's not just an occupation, it is a way of life. And that's the part that I think some people don't seem to understand, the effect that these type of rule changes can have on an industry so critical to this country. West Virginia has over 23,000 small farms, and statistically, a little bit higher ownership than the state of Pennsylvania. West Virginia actually has the highest percent in the country of owner-operated farms, a lot of small operations. In West Virginia and across this country, and this is a quote from Secretary Vilsack last month at a briefing I was at here in D.C., but he said the average age of the American farmer is nearing 60 years old. And a lot of this focuses on the family farm and the children. But for me to do the math, when the average farmer is approaching 60 years old, that tells me there's getting to be less and less children under 16 that their parents are actually farming. So that increases the need not only to allow nieces and nephews and grandchildren and grandnieces and nephews, but of other youth in the community. As this population ages, they need help. And they care about their operations. The one thing that hasn't been brought out here today is liability. If these children are negligently injured or killed on a farm, there's a price to pay. And there's no price to put on a child's life. But if they do serious violations, they've got penalties to pay. And the farmers that I know are not prone to go out there and just shamelessly put people in harm's way. I don't care whether it's their child. In fact, I'm a grandparent. And I let my kids do things on the farm that I won't let my grandkids do. So I think if you want the next level of child protection, if you put the grandparents in charge of them, there's a few things they might not get to do. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health has made 14 recommendations. And although the Department of Agriculture is in agreement with some issues about instances of when you can and can't use a cell phone, working with anhydrous ammonia, some of these confined spaces with limitations. There's some things that can be done, but they need to be done in a reasonable manner. The proposed change to and this is a quote from the proposed rule change to employment in agriculture under adverse conditions states in part, the Department is asking for comments on whether it should create a new Ag HO addressing youth exposure to extreme temperatures. Such an Ag HO could provide that youth under the age of 16 would not be permitted to work in agriculture occupations where the temperatures at which they are working exceed or drop below a certain temperature, factoring in such things as humidity, wind velocity, and the degree of duration of physical exertion required by the work. It might also require that hours in direct sunlight be limited if the temperature reaches certain thresholds for prolonged periods of time. Anyone who has ever farmed understands weather is the most unpredictable part of farming. To comply with this proposed rule change would most likely require one of two options. Hire a full-time meteorologist to document all the requirements and advise when youth under 16 could work, or secondly, just simply limit farming if you rely on youth under 16 to stack hay, pick fruits or vegetables, feed or work with livestock, or just pull weeds, because it does get hot and it does get cold on a farm. Studies that over the 11-year period from 1998 to 2009, I know I'm about to run out of time, but I appreciate your involvement of the 2011 fact sheet on childhood agricultural injuries, and I would certainly be glad to answer any questions you may have relating to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.